Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're diving into something that is absolutely crucial for the current corporate landscape. We're going to unpack a very direct, hard-hitting source that outlines the cascading business failures waiting for Philippine companies if they just choose to ignore ESG. That's environmental, social, and governance standards, by the way. Look, we hear ESG talks about a lot, right? Sometimes it's treated like a passing trend, or maybe just a PR exercise. But the material we're looking at today, it strips all of that away to show the raw financial and structural consequences of doing nothing. So let's see exactly how this unfolds.
Okay, let's kick things off with the uncompromising question right at the core of our source material. What actually happens? We're not talking about hypotheticals here or some vague PR warning about your brand's reputation. We're looking at the concrete, operational realities that hit a business when sustainability is just put on the back burner.
The message here is a total wake-up call. Let me be direct. It cuts right through all that corporate jargon to deliver a pretty harsh reality check. If you've been sitting around waiting for the right time to take ESG seriously, well, as you'll see, that time has already passed.
These consequences play out like a series of falling dominoes. So let's look at the first domino, losing global export contracts. There is a really stark contrast in global trade right now. On one side, you've got European and American buyers strictly requiring ESG compliance from their entire supply chain. And on the other side, Philippine manufacturers who can't produce an ESG report aren't getting pulled into dramatic negotiations. They are just being quietly dropped from supplier lists. Literally, the phone just stops ringing, and those contracts go elsewhere.
And here's the kicker. This isn't some regulation coming into effect next year. The loss of these crucial export contracts is happening right now. Every single day you delay, global buyers are actively restructuring their supply chains to exclude non-compliant vendors.
Which brings us to the second domino, failing investment due diligence.
When it comes to financing your expansion, the screening process has become totally universal. Foreign investors and development banks, they no longer just look at your financial health. They run mandatory ESG screenings on every single company they consider funding. You simply cannot bypass this filter anymore.
So what happens when they inevitably ask for your sustainability metrics, your carbon footprint, or your governance structures, and you have zero data to provide?
No investment. It is that simple. There is no middle ground here, and definitely no grace period. If the data isn't there, the capital vanishes instantly.
Next, we look a little closer to home with the third domino, facing stricter local regulations.
The key players here are getting really aggressive. We're talking about the Department of Environment and Natural Resources, the Environmental Management Bureau, and your local government unit environmental offices. We are rapidly moving out of an era of lax enforcement and straight into a period of incredibly strict oversight.
And when these newly aggressive agencies start looking for violations, they know exactly where to aim. If you lack a structured environmental management system, well, you're the low-hanging fruit. You become an immediate target for regulatory penalties, steep fines, and even operational shutdowns.
But the threat isn't just external. That brings us to the fourth domino, losing top young talent.
The modern workforce's priorities have fundamentally shifted. The next generation of Filipino professionals, Generation Z and young millennials, they want to work for companies that actually stand for something. A paycheck alone just doesn't cut it anymore. They demand a demonstrable commitment to sustainability from their employers.
If your company has no sustainability commitment, you aren't just going to struggle to hire new people, you're going to suffer a severe internal talent bleed. The best, brightest, and most capable minds will simply walk away to find employers who actually align with their values.
And that brings us to the existential threat at the core of it all, the final domino, falling behind competitors. Because while you're debating if ESG even matters, your ESG-ready competitors are already making moves. And because they're moving, they are scooping up everything you're losing. They're winning the export contracts, securing the international investments, hiring the top-tier talent, and capturing the market's trust. It's a zero-sum game. Inaction means you're actively handing market share right over to your rivals.
Which leads us to the climax of our source material, the illusion of safety.
It is so easy to fall into this psychological trap, believing that just maintaining the status quo is a safe harbor. But doing things the way they've always been done is a dangerous illusion right now. In a world that is demanding sustainability, standing still is actually moving backward. Ignoring ESG is absolutely not playing it safe.
Business failure in this context compounds. It sneaks up on non-compliant companies slowly at first and then all at once. Think about it. First, you miss out on one contract. Then, maybe one young executive resigns. It feels manageable, right? But then, as global and local standards crystallize, the investment dries up, regulators are suddenly knocking on your door, and the market just leaves you behind simultaneously. It is an exponential cost for your delay.
So, if you're realizing that your business might be standing right in the path of these falling dominoes, it is time to break out of that complacency. Following Sustained pH Studio is a great daily touchpoint for Philippine businesses that are ready to actually begin this journey and get ahead of the curve. So, I'll leave you with this. What is your company's next move? Are you just going to play it safe, or are you preparing to lead?